Hi, everybody. Since this is a Wallace Shawn episode, I thought instead of a high-pitched voice, I would come in with the lowest voice I could do. So, welcome to the Rules of Acquisition After Dark. And let me tell you all about My Dinner with Andrea, which is a movie that I had not watched when we watched this episode of DS9. But in fact, I have a lot of things to say about Grotowski. And back when I was upstate doing theater, I can tell you that I had such an amazing experience. I was working on this play, and we were both, we were all naked. It was about the intersection between fear and arousal. The play was called Terrotica. And I was walking around naked holding a knife and wearing a Costa Rican devil mask made out of a cow skull, you see. And I was grasping with another woman. She was naked. And I was, before then I was uttering very guttural text, maybe even in a voice like this. And I was doing it and from the Necronomicon, or a, fabrication published, quote unquote, version of the Necronomicon. And when I was doing this, is the most rewarding creative work of my entire theater career. I was in a farm upstate in an abandoned church, which is where we built the show. And am I boring you? Oh, okay. I guess you don't want to hear about that. Would you rather just listen to us talk about the Nagus and Ferengi and this episode of the Rules of Acquisition? Fine. Well, enjoy the show. Actually, I'm sick. That's why I sound like this. And by the time if you stick around for the back end, I will have more to say, and I probably will feel a little bit better because I'm about to start coughing and I can't keep this up. All right. Enjoy the show, and I will be back on the back end to talk about the Nagus.
Cracks, Naba, roll, my Hardu, Zeke. Oh yeah. The bigotry towards and sexual appetites of the Ferengi. Oh yeah. And Wade has a crush on Andrea Martin, a strange, beautiful crush. Oh yeah. It's time for the Rules of Acquisition.
Hello, and welcome to the Rules of Acquisition, a podcast I hope you've been listening to for a little bit, so you know the whole spiel. We're talking about Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. We're going through every single episode. With me is James Nolan.
Hey, guys.
And Hugh Crawford.
Hello, gentlemen.
And as always, I'm Wade Bowen. And tonight we're going through an episode called The Nagus.
Yes, The Nagus.
So, yeah.
All right. You want me to go ahead and get into the description? According to IMDb, this aired March 21st, 1993. IMDb describes this episode as the Ferengi's greatest politician and leader, the Grand Nagus, comes to the station. He seems very interested in Quark's bar. This one was directed by David Livingston. All right, gentlemen. So what do we think of the Nagus? Anybody want to start? Initial thoughts?
I loved this episode. This is the first one in a while. I enjoyed a good part of this episode, and I feel like that the parts that I didn't enjoy revealed something to me about how at least the first season of Deep Space Nine is running behind the scenes. And I enjoyed it on that level too. So what wasn't enjoyable was informative to me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this one more than I thought I would, remembering it. Because let's go out and say this is a Ferengi episode. That's what this one is.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This one's all about the Ferengi.
Yes.
And I remember from going through and watching it all before as the Ferengi getting a little bit tiresome. Like, they lean on it so much because it's a fan favorite and blah, blah. It's kind of, trite or whatever. But you know what? This is a great episode. I liked it.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think for two reasons it's great. One of which is the entire, I really liked, I mean, it's kind of hokey and TV as it was. I really liked the whole Cisco, Jake, and Nog storyline.
Yeah, I came on here ready to defend that quite a bit.
Oh, it's a good one. Yeah,
No. I thought that was a good storyline.
me too.
I like that a lot.
I have thoughts about it I want to talk about later.
Yeah, I responded to it as a teenager, a man who's been a teenager. I responded to it as a father of an 8-year-old boy, but what will one day be a 14-year-old boy. So, I mean, I liked that whole storyline a lot.
Okay, so the storyline is that basically Jake could go on vacation. At the beginning of the episode, Jake could go on a trip with his father, but it tells him that he doesn't want to do that he just wants to watch ships come in with Nog.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's at an age where he's putting, like, the stuff with his dad aside in favor of hanging out with his friend, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, he could go to the fire caverns for Gratitude Fest,
Yes.
which at first I was like, oh, is this like fucking Happiness Day or whatever it is in the Star Wars
Yeah.
holiday special?
Exactly. And for everyone that wanted to go see those fire caves, believe me, you will. Don't worry. You'll see a lot of those fire fire caverns of Bajor.
Yeah. They come back.
Yeah. I also like that it it was pretty extremely sort of firm in the racism of Cisco and O'Brien, but particularly Cisco, towards Ferengis. And I'm going to call it racism.
Yeah, it's racism.
Because I think specifically about the racism in that storyline between Nog and the father and the son, and I think it's specifically like hammered home in that scene where he's like, "I want you to like them because we're Federation and we like other people, but we're just so different that we can never, you know." And he was trying to make these sort of excuses to sort of, and it was fun to watch this. It's fun to watch Avery Brooks do this. It's fun to watch a Federation that sort of chisel at the esteem of the Federation. So all of that was just really, really enjoyable. And the second thing that I loved most about this episode was Wallace Shawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just imagine, I mean, watch those scenes and imagine even like the base level Star Trek actor in that role, like whatever the base minimum or whatever is, playing that role and how hammy and awful it could be,
right?
Or boring,
right?
It could be really boring too.
He gets a little bit hammy in there, but almost a little bit to the
yeah,
to the extent that those get a little bit grating for me, if I'm being honest.
But I felt like he knew
it was going to grate on you. Like, it's like you're being graded on by a master.
Yeah, I forgave it because it's fucking Wallace Shawn doing it. So,
well, I feel like he knew when to go a little bit deeper. He knew when to like hold back. He knew when to he's giving a multi-level performance. Obviously, it's a high-pitched performance, and obviously it's broad comedy, but he's giving it like a touch of nuance that I think is maybe is a lesson for some of these actors on the show of how to play these kind of characters. So
right.
I don't know if he went into it thinking I'm going to do a nuanced thing. I think he's just good enough that it pulls through.
Yeah, no, I think he just sense memory of like old Hollywood, old Broadway talent,
Right.
He's trained enough and been around enough that he knows that he's a real actor. He worked his way to get to where he is, and he's a real playwright. And
right. He's done mask work like Armin Shimmerman has to make him good at being a Ferengi.
Yeah, so like he's got the skills. So just in the sense memory, he comes from like someone didn't just he's not like Terry Farrell, where everybody told her she was pretty and she decided to go be in television.
Yeah,
that's not his career path. So he's got skills that he acquired through not being on a different path. So.
Yeah, you're a hot 4'11" or whatever his height is.
Yes.
Though to your first point, I did find it funny. Like, the Cisco's, the Federation, and humans and Ferengi are so different. Oh yeah, because like humans have never been capitalist.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Plus, Cisco's dad owns a restaurant.
Yeah.
Are you telling me he's giving that shit away for free?
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
He's in the Federation. Yeah, he's doing it because that's what you get to do in the 23rd, whatever century it is. You get to do what you love. You get to make a living off of it. You don't have to worry about doing it for sustenance. You do it because you love doing it. and that's what his dad does.
Well, they call him a chef, but really he's just a replicator programmer.
His dad cooks and shit.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. We haven't even introduced.
We are. Yeah, that was my bad.
This episode even had aubergine stew in it.
Oh, this is the first mention of aubergine stew?
No, it was mentioned in the pilot because his dad used to make a mean aubergine stew, but this was the second mention. Yeah.
Okay.
So what's up here?
So why is the Grand Nagus coming to a shitty little space station? Well, and a shitty little bar. It turns out it's because the Gamma Quadrant provides some new business opportunities. And I think that's interesting. You know, that like checks off the box of actually using the wormhole for a plot device.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is basically all we ask of this show. And it hasn't done that for half of the episodes.
Yes.
Good point.
That was what you think of, like in those last lines of the first of the pilot episode. It's like, this opens up everything of all these new potentials. And then we just do typical boring Star Trek shit for 5 episodes.
Right.
No, this is like, why aren't there Ferengis out there manipulating people in that? So, no, it makes sense. This is what the second or third episode should have been about.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, you know what? That's true.
Mm-hmm.
The Grand Nagus should have been there like ASAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to sort of plant the seeds on what I think when I said that it gave me like an inkling of what I don't think is working this season. Is this episode was actually pitched by the director. The director of the episode, he's directed a ton of Star Trek shows across all spectrums of the different series. David Livingston, and it was the first time he pitched an episode. And he pitched an episode that he pitched the Jake, Nog, and Cisco stuff. And then he pitched an episode about a conglomerate of criminals that run a criminal enterprise throughout the Alpha Quadrant, featuring Klingons, Vulcans, criminal Vulcans and all these different people. And they were to come on Quark's bar and sort of put the plot device in motion that Quark ultimately sort of got snared into. And I think that's a fine episode. Like, I don't know. And they were like, no. And Ira Bear said, no, I just want to rewrite it and put Ferengis in it because we like Ferengis.
You know what? I think that was the right call.
Do you?
Yeah, I do too.
No, okay. So I like this episode a lot, but
you have the Ferengi, you might as well utilize them, and it also helps set this as something. It gives this series a voice apart from the Next Generation, which, you know, Ferengis weren't a thing until the Next Generation. But then this is like, you have Quark, who is such a good character. You might as well, if we're doing character-based stuff, have a Quark episode. Oh, how do you have a Quark episode? You talk about the Ferengi and their wider, civilization.
Yeah.
Okay, it's my belief that Quark would have still been the center of this.
Yeah, but it just makes it more interesting and it colors it. Otherwise, you do it with all the other races. It's like a Next Generation episode, but that Quark happens to be in.
Yeah, this actually this makes it uniquely Deep Space Nine is I think what he's trying to say, right?
No, yeah, okay. You're right, because the weird thing about my argument is this episode doesn't suck. So I'm arguing about a change that was made that didn't make didn't make it a bad episode.
Right.
But I think it shows
that is weird.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, my overall point is I think that Ira Bear is possibly like a bad writer and a bad influence on this show. And I think that with last episode, which was a dumbass idea of an episode and was an awful episode, was pitched by Ira Bear's best friend who had never worked on Star Trek before. But he was his best friend and he let him pitch an episode and it was the worst episode in the world.
Yeah, Move Along Home is easily the worst episode. We talked at the beginning of the podcast about a Man Alone being the bar. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, no, we moved.
Man Alone is so much that the bar is Move Along Home is so much below the bar. It's the worst.
So we think Move Along Home is actually the worst one so far?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh yeah, totally. I do.
Do you not?
No, I don't think it is the worst.
It may be the worst Deep Space Nine episode.
It pulls that trick where it's so bad that it's almost entertaining. Yeah. So yeah. You might have a point there, but
that's my point. Like in watchability, I think. I'm dragging us back to last week's argument. This week.
It's a black hole of badness where we're still stuck in its gravitational pull.
Yeah, we might be able to get in this argument every week about which one's worse if we're not careful.
Yeah, my argument for a long time is going to be move along home.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. So I blame that episode all on Ira Bear, and I think that I think what he's doing is he's meddling in episodes to keep it. Yet again, I think it doesn't add to like the greater Deep Space mythos, but you're right. It uses and it introduces Wallace Shawn, who's in 7 more episodes of Deep Space Nine. So he's not like he's a character we see again.
Yeah,
the Nagus. So it contributes to that world, but I think that yet again he's trying to keep it like locked in the Deep Space Nine. Like there's a show that we know exists that it's trying to break out of, and I feel like right now and this is another episode that just happens inside a really small box that we know that they don't have to be in. And I feel like that's where this, because every episode now, we go and we watch it and we're like, when does the show I remember take off?
Right.
And it still hasn't done that yet. But it's hard making that, and you see that people are pitching bigger ideas. So let's say you have this great memorable character and you have this great storyline with Rom, with Nog's dad and him backstabbing Quark and all of those sort of things.
Yeah. I was about to say this is the first time that Rom's his personality actually starts to come through.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Like for the whole greater series, the last time we saw Rom, he was just your standard Ferengi, and this time at the very first scene, it's like Rom being like Rom, you fucking idiot, and that's also when we get the first rule of acquisition, which we've named our damn podcast after. So I think that merits talking about because it sets up Rom as a bad Ferengi or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the first rule? Does anybody remember it off the top of their head?
Oh, it's once you have their money, never give it back. They say, and Rom says it like it's supposed to be an iambic pentameter or something.
Never give it back.
I noticed that, like, the way that he says it, it's like, once you get it's not just a regular thing. Once you get their money, never give it. Like, maybe in Ferengi it rhymes better. It sounds better in the native Ferengi.
Well, that would I think you're supposed to get it as like they learned it at school.
Yeah, that's the stat.
Okay, that brings us to school and the subject of Ferengi schools.
What school? They don't have school in Ferengi.
Apparently not.
Well, that's what bothers me about this episode. Here we have the B plot. Rom is disgusted with the human school. He tells Nog, his Ferengi son, that he cannot go to the Federation school anymore. And so that Nog, the poor bastard, turns out he can't even read, which was not established, I don't think, until this episode, right? This is the first we find out that Nog can't read.
Well, that was the thing. I was actually wondering, well, is he just that stunted, or does that mean he can't read Federation speech? So he's trying to learn Federation.
It wasn't clear. I don't know if he could even read Ferengi or what.
Yeah, that's weird. Like, he has to learn to read Ferengi. Well, you know what? It's probably the father's role to do that, and Rom's not good enough. Rom's a big enough idiot that he never got around to it.
I think if this was in the Old West, Rom would be illiterate too.
Yeah, and his whole thing about, Rom doesn't really care if he goes to school. Mm-hmm. He's just pissed because he's embarrassed in front of the Grand Nagus and Quark saying, "Oh, your kid's going to a Federation school," and he flips out.
Yeah,
we learn later that Rom actually doesn't have that big bias, but he's not developed enough to get there
yet.
He's
that typical character that's kind of dumb and soft. He's like Ferdinand, the bull from the children's story, where he doesn't want to be playing these these complicated Ferengi manipulation games, but it's expected of him. So when he does it slowly, and when he does it, it's really numb-fisted and broad because it's not like his natural state.
Right.
And so, I think at the end of the episode, you find him, after trying to kill his only family and the only person that's really taking care of him in the show, trying to kill him twice.
I love that, though.
No, I love that too,
I do too.
Which oddly enough makes Quark respect him. I love everything about this episode. I think this is a good episode. I just was setting up that I think Ira Bear's a hack, because I think in 3 or 4 episodes, I'm going to say, I told you, Ira Bear's a hack.
All right.
But no, I love this episode. But I think that like Rom is that by the end of the episode, Rom gets to go back to his comfortable zone of being a follower, and Nog.
Right.
And Nog eventually goes back to class, right? I mean, there's other.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
They don't do a good job of establishing that.
Spoilers. I don't remember how it works out, but
I mean, eventually he's a Bajoran air pilot. So, like, I mean, like,
right. I don't want to spoil anything
Yeah, sorry
for
about that.
people that have not watched this show in the 20 years since it aired or whatever. But yeah,
these characters have long lives, and
yeah. And Nog gets very interesting. Though going back to that first scene when Quark berates Rom for giving the woman her money back, because the first rule of acquisition is once you have their money, never give it back.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rom is return the girl's purse. And then Rom goes over to yell at Nog. He's basically going down the pecking order to yell at his kid.
yeah.
And then Rom, I guess it's supposed to be established that he's making a house of cards, but it's like glasses and
iPads.
iPads. It's
like pint glasses and iPads.
What
was he?
Yeah, the director was like, I don't know, just here's some props we have, and just stack them.
I thought like the story was trying to make me think that he was doing something school related. That he's got a thirsty hunger for knowledge, and he's been.
That's what I thought too. For some reason, I thought
I don't know what he's doing with pint glasses and iPads.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's give him some business. I don't know what it means. We have these dumb props. It doesn't.
It's still a stretch.
Yeah, like because I don't know what that. Because like last week, didn't we see Jake what looked like building a lightsaber or something? Like I don't know. Like,
He was, but then school was canceled last week. This week, school's back on with O'Brien teaching it instead of his wife.
Yeah, that was my next.
which apparently teaching the classroom is passed down by blood right. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, like O'Brien's already working his fucking ass off.
he's the busiest guy.
And they're like, oh, sorry, and I mean, man, this whole thing is like set up to shit on his wife.
Yeah, okay. Can we say that the plot line that was cut was how much gossip was going around the Federation officers about clearly O'Brien's wife is not coming back to Deep Space Nine?
Right. He's the last one to know.
Did you read that on Memory Alpha, or you just make it up?
No. It was just this idea that, like, a couple, they've been fighting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Then they go on a long vacation, and then he comes back alone. She's not coming back.
Right. I'll just teach the school. Just, it's fine. It's fine.
I get the feeling that there was like a scene, there was a succession of scenes cut out where, Cisco's like, hey man, do you want to come by my house, my cabin tonight, and I'll cook and we can have some beers and talk about things.
Right.
Hey buddy, you okay?
Yeah, we've already established that O'Brien is totally overworked, and now he has to fucking teach school.
That was like, give it to Jadzia. She ain't doing shit on this.
Right.
Well, the minute that scene with him in the school is over with, something breaks down on the ship. Somebody tells O'Brien shit's breaking down.
Oh, he's late to class because he's already had to fix something.
Yeah, like every time you see him, he's in a hole, like surrounded by wires. Like someone helped. Like,
all right, sorry kids. Sorry, I'm not on time. I had to do work. My God, get fucking.
Yeah.
Cisco's got his kid there. He's just sitting in his office with his hands behind his ears, throwing a baseball around. Let him teach.
If I'm right, Kira had no line in this episode.
Yeah, let her do it.
And Julian was barely in this episode, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in the scene where he's like. Was talking about
declared the Nagus dead.
Yeah, or the
right.
No, it was that making sure that Quark was okay after the bomb didn't kill him.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right. One of the attempts is a Ferengi homing bond.
Yeah, that works off your sweat. That homes.
Yeah, which Ferengis give off a lot.
It makes sense.
They're always quick to give out gross details about Ferengi.
I agree.
Hey, you know what? Technology then can probably hone in on DNA and pheromones.
Yeah.
Maybe Ferengi give more. They got a lot of earwax. I don't know.
One thing I noticed by having an episode that was so full of Ferengi is that, because there's 10 or more Ferengi in this episode.
Yeah.
One of the things I realized is that they kind of go out of their way to make Quark the most attractive.
Yeah.
He's like the George Clooney of Ferengis, it seems like.
He's the most watchable. You can actually look at him. And that's on purpose because we have to look at his face for 40 minutes every week. So by design, we have to be able to look at him.
He doesn't wear one of those little infantilizing bonnets.
Yeah, there's only a few of those. I feel like they give those out because most of the time they're like, man, I don't want to do the rest of the makeup work. Just put a bonnet on.
Unlike Wallace Shawn, his head doesn't look like testicles.
Right.
So it turns out that the Grand Nagus is looking for a successor, and he names Quark as his successor, and then he fakes his own death. And then the whole thing was a test for the Nagus' son.
And his son is pissed off.
And his son is pissed off because he fails the test.
Yeah.
Right. And then his son and Rom are the ones that are plotting Quark's death.
Yeah. Right. Because the way to have won the test was to be the one that takes care of the bar. Because Quark's bar is really important. And
right. That's where the money is, ultimately.
And the influence.
If you listen... Well, and that was a really nice point. And even at one point, like the Nagus says about his son, it's like talking about to a Klingon. No.
Klingon, yeah.
And it sets like Ferengi values are not like be cutthroat and kill people. It's just like, you know what? It's whatever gets the most profit. It's not about being violent or aggressive. What he should have done is just sat back and been the guy behind the scenes pulling the strings. Mm-hmm. And that's what Ferengi is all about. Whereas his son is like trying so hard to be aggressive and cutthroat and everything. That's like, I really like that one line at the very end. It's like talking to a Klingon. That's what it is.
Yeah. And you also see it when I was watching it a second time, you see all of the different areas where it puffs up Quark, this episode. It's very generous to Quark.
Oh, yeah.
And like at most moments, Quark has the right instinct. Even at the end, by dragging that Dabo girl to like show off to the Gamma Quadrant that's his wife.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a smart instinct because they couldn't kill the Dabo girl too.
Right. No, don't do that.
Yeah. So but like all of his instincts, even in that overbrought kind of crappy Godfather ripoff scene.
Oh, at the table.
Oh God, I hated that.
Yeah, where he's holding like a cat organ or something. Like I don't know, like some sort of like space cat.
What the fuck was that puppet there? Yeah, the pet there. Do we see that thing show up again at any time? I actually loved it. Hey, it's some
crazy space cat.
Low budget Henson Imagineer, but Muppet shit.
The puppet was
it's like somebody had their hand in that thing doing like little movements and stuff
through that whole scene. Yes.
Yeah,
probably Nana visitor, so she'd have something to do.
That's how she got her stipend for the show or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I almost wonder if maybe this episode was written without knowing if O'Brien would be back from Con Air or whatever movie he was filming for the last 3 episodes. And that was all Nana Visitor stuff. And then like when O'Brien came back, they just ripped all of her lines from her and gave it to O'Brien.
Maybe. But he had his wife. They didn't want to pay Keiko for this one.
Because I think it would be funny to watch Kira having to teach a bunch of kids.
It would be. Yeah.
And like deal with their homework excuses.
Yeah.
That's a funnier scene than O'Brien.
When I was your age, I was killing
yes.
with like razor wire Cardassians with my bare hands.
Yes.
And you guys are complaining about homework.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to build a nation here, all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But back to my point is the episode is really good to Quark. And I like that you get to see how when you bring in all the Ferengis, you get to see in contrast not only the world that Quark comes from to better understand him, but you get to see that like how he is, you always want the character in a show to be exceptional among his kind, and that he is that. So that's a joy to watch,
Guys, being a Ferengi looks fucking exhausting. Like every time I'm watching it, I'm just like, Jesus, it looks like it's just full of just like one anxious hand-wringing moment to the next.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
It just looks like a miserable existence.
And then they have to, like there was this, I love that you go through, Armin Shimmerin's pretty great in this episode, but the scene where the Nagus comes in and the Nagus wants to go fuck a girl at the brothel.
Right.
Or 5 of them.
I'm glad that we've established that he runs a brothel.
Yeah, and then he wants to fuck 5 girls.
Yeah.
And then like Quark is like, well, okay, that's not a problem, but if he dies in my hollow suite, like that's gonna look bad on me. So he's got all that shit to worry about.
Right.
And then the Nagus comes out like, oh, give me that orange drink.
Yes.
There's a whole theme of orange, and then Jake Sisko is drinking orange juice this whole time. There's a big orange drink.
Yes.
Give me that orange stuff.
Yes.
They have Fanta in the future. Wait.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Fanta.
Yeah, that's what that is.
It's like a Juggalo future we live in.
It's a Juggalo culture, the Ferengis.
I get it. That actually makes sense.
That does make sense.
Oh my god. I think we stumbled upon something here.
They're future juggalos, yeah.
Oh my god.
I think that's giving Juggalos a little bit more credit than they deserve.
Yeah, they're not really economic powerhouses of the upper.
I like Ferengi a lot more than I like Juggalos.
Yes.
Sorry, Juggalos that are listening. You're pieces of shit. Okay, I hate you.
I'm surprised there's not a real life gathering of the Ferengi.
I'd go to an obscure place in Indiana to go to that. People in their homemade Ferengi makeup. Oh my god. All the women are naked because that's what Ferengi like females to be.
Yeah, they dress like the Dabo girl, yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, according to Ferengi, women should not be in clothing at all, ever. That's it. Maybe,
you're right. They did.
We'll talk about that more later.
They did say that, but like later on, doesn't the girl?
Oh no, we'll get into that.
Oh,
no,
we do.
Wade is right about this though. They're not supposed to be clothed. It's not something that they just like retcon later.
Oh, do they?
They stick with that, and it's a plot point later. Yes.
Oh, with his mom?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
With what's her name from
Yes.
Second City, SCTV?
Is it Andrea Martin?
Yeah, Andrea Martin plays his mom.
Yes.
Holy shit. Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
Yes.
Andrea Martin still looks good naked to this day, but
What?
whatever. Yeah.
Is she just getting out of the shower at your apartment and drying off right
No,
now?
but
Is
she
that
was.
why you're-
Andrea Martin is a national treasure. That's all. I'm
Okay,
gonna
no,
say.
I'm not here to badmouth.
Yeah.
I'm not here to badmouth that, but I think
If
that
it's Andrea Martin that plays Quark's mom, oh my god, I'm so
I don't
excited.
think I've ever found myself sexually attracted to her, though.
I haven't either, but she.
Okay.
I'm just saying she takes good care of herself. That's all.
Okay.
And aside from her physicality, Andrea Martin is a fucking net, and she's the best.
Okay. Well, I think in season 2.
Apparently, she did a whole thing when she was on Pippin on Broadway. She does for a revival. She did amazing things with acrobatics and trapeze shit. Like she's in good shape.
Oh, okay.
I think this is a pro Andrea Martin
Podcast. Yeah, no,
I think we could. She gets
yeah.
the rules of acquisition stamp of approval.
Yeah, anybody that has bad things to say about Andrea Martin, I want to fight.
So let's just say that probably in the future, and I don't know if this holds up to scrutiny, but it seems that all of the Ferengi episodes could be awful, but they're all saved by good acting.
Yeah, that's probably safe.
Yeah.
Wallace Shawn, Armin Shimmerman, Andrea Martin later on. I even like Wallace Shawn's manservant of the punk rock Ronald Reagan guy.
Yeah,
Did they make him look like Ronald Reagan on purpose?
I don't know.
that's a fucking perfect observation.
Yeah.
Doesn't Luxana Troy have one of those?
Like,
a big silent guy that doesn't talk?
oh, yeah, that's like the butler race of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
Oh, well, that comes up later, too.
They do establish that particular race of alien is extremely loyal to their masters or something like
They
that.
do, yeah.
Their employers.
For
or
like the
something
2
like that.
minutes that they're trying to make him look suspicious in the whole Nagus plot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so. Also, weren't they handing out pieces of Wallace Shawn's dead body in petri dishes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was counterfeit because, spoiler, he's not really dead.
No, I know, but like, who did they have to kill a Ferengi? How did that? Were they?
No, they replicate it. You put green dust in the prop masters had to make it. The Ferengi do the same
Well,
shit.
it seems like, but
Except easier. They just punch a code
yeah,
in.
but it seems like Ferengis would want like some sort of letter of authenticity.
There was.
Yeah.
It said that. It said that it said something to that effect, that there's just like a certificate of authenticity with
Oh,
it.
okay.
I mean, I'm sure anything in the Ferengi world could be counterfeit.
I know. But in
Yeah.
that scene, it was specifically Ferengi selling to Ferengi. So it seems like
Oh yeah,
all of
that was a beautiful bit of like fucking Ferengi culture that they established in this episode, which I
is
love.
that they're just as gullible to their own sales pitches as
Yeah, well, but,
No, that they're so capitalist that they don't care about having funerals.
Oh
or,
yeah, no, that I
or
liked.
commemorating bodies. They want to sell
That I
them.
liked, but it seemed like their own interbartering wasn't any more sophisticated than what they do with
right.
the others.
Well, for thousands of years, they built their society. I'm sure they cheated each other before they had first contact and were able to cheat somebody else.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah,
I mean,
they honed their.
They've had thousands of years to develop ways to counterfeit that shit, anyways. That probably the Ferengi don't think
But it
about
just seems like all of these hanger-ons of the Nagus, they're not like there's not the ROMs of the world, or maybe they are. I don't know.
oh, they're totally the ROMs.
How often does a Nagus pretend to die and give up profit by faking his death? Probably not that often.
I guess I was thinking more of no, I don't want to pay that much for it, but it's going to be twice as much next year. Okay. That's an old as dirt sales tactic that worked on I don't know. You're right, but it was a weird...
History has probably borne that out in Ferengi culture that it will be worth more.
I guess, yeah.
So,
no, I agree with you. It was a strange thing to see.
Yeah, it was strange.
Sure.
I like
everything about the Ferengi is strange.
Oh my god, I love this episode. This episode had so much to sort of sink your teeth into. This was a fine episode, even though I still think it exposes Ira Bear as a hack.
This episode was perfect. He's a hack.
I'm all about Ira Bear being our one listener.
Right.
Well, I don't have Nana visitor to smack around in this podcast because she's not there.
We could switch gears real quick and talk about how great Avery Brooks and the Jake stuff was.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it turns out, whenever we have a kid in Star Trek, he's always going to be like a wonder kid. And Jake's character is so refreshingly normal.
Yeah.
And his relationship with his dad is refreshingly normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that we saw on TV a lot, and it's not something we see a lot on TV right now. I think the closest thing we had to it recently was Walter White's relationship with his son in Breaking Bad, kind of where they had a real gentle relationship.
Maybe let's say that first season before it gets really
sure.
Yeah,
right.
Before it gets sucked into the gravity of Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Cisco-Jake relationship. First of all, he's the only person ever, in Star Trek you have Beverly Crusher as a mom, but everyone else in the Federation is not a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are a parent, they're bad at it. He has a son and he's a good dad.
Yeah.
Kirk has a son, I guess, in the movies, but he's a shit dad and his son fucking dies.
You get the feeling that Kirk said, phew. Right after his son.
Yeah, oh shit, I have a son. He doesn't know he has a son until the second or third movie.
Movie, and then the kid dies in the third movie, I think.
He has a son for a quarter of a movie.
Yes.
Right.
I think he managed to lose him in that quarter.
And for all that he got around in the original series, it's amazing that he only has the one, honestly.
Yeah. I know we said privately that you could count on one hand how many characters in Star Wars has had sex. I feel like maybe the same thing could be true for Star Trek also.
Well, the nature of the life isn't it. We've established this before that when you join a paramilitary organization, it doesn't exactly lend itself to the best family situation.
Yeah, that's true.
No, but Star Trek has been about sex in the future for a while.
Yeah.
Since the beginning.
Well, sex doesn't equal family.
Yeah, no, that's
exactly.
True. That's true.
That's my point.
But I was more talking about specifically with Star Wars, with how few people have actually had sex in Star Wars, or are allowed to.
Yeah, Star Wars is afraid of sex.
Yes. Star Trek less so.
Trek celebrates it. Risa.
Gene Roddenberry was much more sex positive than George Lucas, I think.
Yes.
George Lucas is strange. But no, I think you hit on the nail on the head with what is so great about is because you're given a kid whose name is on the credits at the beginning. So he's not like us sometime. I mean, he's only on it sometimes, but he's an everyday, he's a Deep Space Nine character.
Right.
He's in that core character.
Yeah.
And you're right, he's not the special. Wesley Crusher was never allowed to be just a kid because he was always a wonderkin.
Right.
Jake isn't. Jake is probably will ever be as smart as his dad.
Right. He's never destined to be a star in the Federation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Nor does he really. He doesn't want to.
No,
he doesn't.
I mean,
we don't need to get ahead of ourselves, but
right.
Yeah, no, he's not special, and he probably won't ever be.
Actually, he is special. He's probably the only person
He's special in a different way.
The only person in the whole damn Federation that's qualified to deal with the Ferengi on a cultural level.
Oh, that's a good point.
If there was ever a Ferengi crisis, the Federation might have to call Jake Sisko in to be the ambassador because he's the only one that's familiar enough with their culture to negotiate those waters.
Oh, that's true. No, that's right.
Yeah.
But it's great watching a typical 14-year-old boy. And I like the fact that I got the feeling that Beverly Crusher always knew she had a nerd genius. So when he was I need to go play around somewhere, she let him.
She's like, okay, fine, go do it, whatever.
But Sisko is legitimately scared because his kid could be in the breaking into holodecks. That's possible.
Yeah, he's on top of his shit with his kid.
He's not going to be raising some Dabo girl's baby, is he?
Yeah, no, yeah. And
Yeah, he sneaks around. He spies on his kid, and then he finds out, oh, I have a good kid. He's like relieved.
Yeah.
Beverly Crusher would be like, oh, he's fine.
But,
whatever. I trust
So it
him.
turns out that when Nog wasn't allowed to go to school and he couldn't read, Jake was sneaking off behind his dad's back, coming home late, and it turns out he was teaching Nog how to read in the cargo bay,
yeah.
right? That's what we're talking about.
Right.
So, yeah, he still does like normal stuff. And he wouldn't tell, like he knew he was doing the right thing, but he wasn't going to break Nog's trust, which is a strange, like realistic 14-year-old thing to do.
And it didn't have to, because he had already said that he was illiterate. He had told his dad he was illiterate in the scene before.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he was keeping that. But yeah.
I like that the show actually respects, like, oh, he's not going to tell the secret. And Cisco respects that Jake doesn't tell him the truth when he goes and spies on him. And O'Brien, when they're in class, he knows that Jake is lying when Nog gives the Vulcans ate my homework excuse.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Vulcan stole my homework. And then O'Brien is like, that's bullshit. But then Jake stands up for him. And he's like, you know what? I respect that your kid's not a rat. I'm going to let it go because he spoke up for you. You know what? I like that.
I like that scene. That was good writing in the classroom scene with like the Vulcans stole my homework, because it shows that he's like culturally illiterate too.
Right, yeah. They're talking about ethics and Vulcans being thieves.
Yeah, he's like, why would Vulcans steal your homework? And he was like, because they don't have ethics. And I was like, that was using Star Trek nerddom and sort of world understanding to develop like something in a really succinct way, in a really well written, quick little way that gives you that he's kind of stupid about people and about the different races of the world. So I like that.
Yeah.
That he needs education, that he needs to be in class.
Yeah. And speaking of Vulcans, apparently Jake and Nog's activity that they do is just sitting at the top of the second level of the mall on the promenade, just sitting around looking at people.
And eating one of those like pig ears that they get from the little merchant.
Yeah. Then they're on the promenade doing whatever, and a Vulcan walks by, and then Jake's like, hubba hubba, basically.
Yes.
'Cause she's hot. And then I just thought, like, maybe those onesie spacesuits that they give them have some extra defense in the crotch, because I don't think they're very good for adolescent boners.
No. That's the bad jumpsuit boners that you don't need.
Right? Maybe the future they solved that problem, because clearly he's getting
saltpeter injections or something.
Yeah, or maybe the fabric is some space age polymer that looks like it, but
it's bigger
like
on the inside,
pushing back that tiny. Yeah.
Don't you think he could just replicate some anti-space boner drug before going and looking?
Yeah, but who wants to do that?
I think that's probably what he does.
I pretend to believe that the suit is actually his boner's pushing real hard against it, but it just doesn't look like it is, because it looks
really constricting. Yeah. No, I like that too, and it was like because he's a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And the whole scene between him and O'Brien, which I really like a lot, or between Cisco and O'Brien, when he's like, I'm not going to push that issue with him right now. And he's like, why not? And he goes, because I don't want him to choose. And he's like, why wouldn't you want him to choose between you and Nog? He goes, because I'm going to lose, because he's a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And that's exactly like I think every parent of a teenager goes through that.
Yeah. And O'Brien's like, what? That's crazy. And like, your kid's 3.
Yes.
Right.
Talk to me again when she's 14. That was great.
Which nerds on Memory Alpha get really upset, because she really should only be a year and a half old. But
of course, fuck you, nerds.
She is a year and a half old, and O'Brien knows that, but he's not going to correct Cisco.
You're turning it into a thing where it's like Cisco doesn't know. Yes,
He's just going to let it sit there. He's not going to. He got the point.
I don't know. Who can figure it out between interstellar travel and star dates and Einsteinian relativity? Maybe she is 3.
Yeah, she could be trapped into time dilations or something like that.
Right.
No, I like that. There's also, we're on timelines and nerds. Apparently, way back in the Dax episode, they gave out a star date that was wildly wrong.
Oh, yeah. Not surprised.
But because you have to, like, follow the timeline on these things.
The nerds went apeshit on Memory Alpha, is what you're saying.
Well, they don't ever want to say that the star dates are wrong, so they have to accept that as fact. And because that was the episode where O'Brien first left.
Oh.
And so he's been gone all this time, and it mentions that he had been gone before on this episode, all of these episodes have to be like Pulp Fictioned out to be like somewhere in the middle of the second season.
That's tedious.
Instead of just accepting that they made a wrong stardate number.
That's funny.
Yeah, so, but like, that's what they do. So, like, all of these things are like, this is complicatedly placed somewhere in the activities of the second season. So,
That's interesting.
yes.
Because they're all kind of one-offs anyways.
Yeah,
That's
it
funny.
doesn't matter. None of them are really building on the larger story. So,
Except when you get to all the different first contacts we've had, those have to be
yeah,
early on.
there's a new first contact next week, too.
That's the third first contact we've had.
Well, it's a first contact, because there's all these different planets. So, it's a first contact with these people.
Okay. Well, of course, you're going to only have one first contact with one person. That's what first contact is.
No.
But they've had first contact. They've had formal first contact so far.
Okay, because you're talking about
with the Gamma Quadrant.
But like, yeah, these are actual planets. So you meet a new race next week too.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's getting here nor there.
All right. So, are we about to the point? Does anybody have anything they want to share that they would change about this, or do we have more to talk about?
I think we're at that point.
Yes.
Who wants to go first?
Come back to me.
Wade, what would you change?
Okay. All right. I don't know if I would change it, but I had a certain memory of what I thought this episode was that I actually was really psyched to wait for it, and it never happened. Like, the way I remembered it was also kind of prescient. Like, I thought that the Nagus faking his death was a way of him shorting and to make more profit for himself. Like, I thought it would have been great if he was like,
oh, that would have been great.
Quark is a fuck up. I'm going to make him Grand Nagus so he can screw everything up, and then I'm going to short sell while I'm quote unquote dead, and then make it up on the back end because I'm all about profit and I'm a genius, and the Nagus is great.
I think that's it.
And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then at the time, I was like, you know what? Oh, my God, that's so prescient because this predates the 2008 collapse. Oh, my God, this show is genius. It's so prophetic. That's in my head. That's how I remembered it. And then, that never happens. The whole thing is a thing to pull a test on his son. It's like, oh, okay, it's fine. I can't blame them for not knowing what would happen in the future. But when I thought that was what it was going to be, I was so excited to talk about how prophetic Deep Space Nine is and how important this show is. And that's why our podcast matters so much. So if I could change anything, I would make it to where that was such a big deal.
People always say when you go back in time that, well, this was made in a simpler time.
Yeah.
Usually they're talking about race, and I usually think that's bullshit. But with this, it's actually true. I don't think people understood because the Ferengi's capitalist little schemes are all flea market swap meet sort of sale schemes, I'll sell you these 4 cartons of this for this, and they're worth it. It's all like really sort of basic capitalism. Yeah. And like the complicated Goldman Sachs world is not really like if this was written today,
they're swindler capitalism.
Yeah, if this was written today, they would be more Goldman Sachsy with their plans of selling shorts and trust stock and all that kind of crap. But you're right, this is that would have been prescient.
I was so psyched. Because you remember things differently, I guess. And I remembered, oh my God, this show is fucking genius. And I didn't even realize it. Well, maybe it's genius in another way. I don't know. I was wrong.
I would have, I don't know. You've half convinced me that, like, my general belief that the original pitch story, the kernel that I understand of it, was probably bringing in things other than Ferengis into this sort of scheme, because I still don't really understand why Ferengis would have a Nagus. His power seems to be nebulous. Is he like a president of the planet?
Yeah, that is a little weird, especially as pro-capitalist as they are.
Well, he's a financial leader and political leader. Financial and political
It seems
leader.
like he's more of a union leader, kind of like when you...
Yeah, he should be the Alan Greenspan, especially talking in the timeline than we are.
That or
before the financial collapse, he should be the Alan Greenspan of the Ferengi.
But he seems more like a Jimmy Hoffa. Like,
yeah, he does. Well, that's what they set up them as, is, crooks.
Yeah, so like that, it's all very complicated, and I would have liked the idea of exploring a formal criminal enterprise in the Alpha Quadrant, and seeing it represented with Romulans and Klingons and Vulcans and all that shit. But still being Quark centric. But like this episode is so good that these arguments are I appreciate that my arguments on this are weak. So
yeah, and they've already actually gotten into bringing all these criminals. They did that with the Q episode.
Yeah,
where
but I meant like
they get all these like criminals to come in and bid on things. They've already had a conglomeration of all the criminals in the quadrant.
Well, sort of. I mean, then he sells those bounty hunters to kill somebody in one of the episodes. But like the idea of like a true like enterprise, like a
mafia or
like
something.
a Cosa Nostra, I think was the word I was trying to look for. Where they're not all just criminals; they're just members of a criminal. It's where they're not all like gangsters, like kill people and shit like that, but they're running like a business. Like it's a business,
right?
Which I think is what it was supposed to be like sort of pitched as. But this episode is great, and this may be my favorite episode since the pilot. So I understand my argument is weak, and I enjoyed this episode. So
yeah,
Yuhi.
The one thing that I would change about this episode is it just bugs me, the lack of education, and Nog's illiteracy bugs me because it doesn't make sense for somebody who to be after profit to be so down on any sort of education. That maybe come up with some sort of like Ferengi caste system.
Yeah, I think the understanding is that Ferengi are all supposed to be homeschooled.
Well, that and maybe, it's the idea.
There's so many things about the Ferengi culture that's counterintuitive to making money.
Yeah.
As my problem overall. They're going about so many things wrong.
You know what I mean?
I
can make the case for this. I mean,
it's because they have an apprentice program, basically.
In general, I mean, the Ferengis are, let's be honest, these people are taking a piss out of right-wing Republicans. The writers and everyone are sort of attacking that. And that gets married towards like this idea of like the Federation is like essentially a socialistic body. And the schools are particularly, even in America now, public education is a socialistic body that's often attacked by right-wing conservatives. And a lot of that's for religious reasons, but it could be for ideological reasons too. And so maybe this idea of like, sort of the dog-eat-dog sort of nature of education, where you want the fittest and like the ones that want it the most get to earn the most. And so if Nog was truly a good earner, if he was truly like, someone that was really going to like have a drive to be a good Ferengi, if he had the lobes for it, he would be getting the education he needed without someone handing it to him.
Yeah.
Okay, then they should communicate that.
I agree.
My point is that they've made such a weak case for his ignorance.
Yeah.
And it was never addressed before.
Yeah.
We don't even see him working in the bar that much, even in the background, like wiping tables or whatever,
or having to clean out the holodeck after the Nagus went through 5 programs.
Right.
Leaning on a mop.
He just gets shit on. That's what Ferengi children do, I guess. They go down the pecking order.
Yeah.
In the pilot episode, at least, he was like a vital part. He was one of the main thieves in Quark's enterprise.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why they throw him in the brig. So
I forgot about that. Yeah. He does have a record.
Yeah, he has a record. And then going back to the 6th rule of acquisition that we also get in this episode.
Oh, yes.
Lay it on us.
Which is also goes back to like, if Ferengi are supposed to be homeschooled and family so important, that's kind of bullshit too. Because the 6th rule of acquisition is never allow family to stand in the way of opportunity.
Right.
So who cares
it's such a everything's so convoluted with the Ferengi. I'm sure the rules of acquisition, if we looked them all up, half of them probably contradict each other.
Oh, it's just them making them up as they go along to buoy the plot.
Right. All right. So, any other final thoughts?
No. The next episode is called The Vortex, and I've watched 20 minutes of it, and
okay, we're back to snooze fest. All right.
It does deal with Odo's where he come from. So that
origins.
Yeah, his origins. So
we're on to an Odo episode, huh?
Yes.
So okay, Rene Auberginois or whatever is usually.
He's been a bright star in the show.
Human. He's a workhorse. Yeah. All right. If that's it, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this one up.
That's a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Rules of Acquisition. Go follow us on all that stuff and do all the stuff that every podcast tells you to do.
Email us.
Yeah. Yeah, follow us on Twitter.
Tell us where we're wrong and stupid.
Yeah,
3 to beam out.
3 to beam out.
All right.
So that, everybody, was the Nagus. And what to say. I feel a little bit better, you guys. I don't know if you can tell, even listening to these, I was sick, so that's why this was a little bit later than usual, but who cares about that? You're probably listening to this when you're listening to it. It's not broadcast TV. So I'm feeling a little bit better. Up top, I guess I talked a lot about My Dinner with Andre. If you don't know, that's Wallace Shawn, who plays Grand Nagus Zek. I mean, you should go watch My Dinner with Andre. I didn't watch it. I think I mentioned on the pod that I've never seen it, which is kind of amazing how much I was into this pretentious avant-garde theater, and I was a guy who would talk about Grotowski, and if you have ever seen that movie, well, I was kind of running on being insufferable. But actually, it's a great film, and I see a lot of like weird similarities between that conversation and then Andre Gregory's life and my career in the theater, except on a very, very much smaller and insignificant scale, because I didn't really do much. I was never a big deal. I was more I'm a piece of shit. That's what I'm saying. And for all of my insufferable theater talk, I was never nobody. And I guess I still am not. Anyways, the Nagus, this episode. Hey, it's a Ferengi episode, everybody, and we love this one, which, going back to this season 1, I found very comical. I mean, not comical, almost ironic that, given where we ended up by the end of the pod, if you haven't listened. And, there's episodes like the one where they do the one at the end of season 6. You know what I'm talking about, if you know what the worst Ferengi episode is. But this wasn't it. This was a good one. It's just funny that, it's not funny. This was a good episode, especially in these early seasons, in the early ROA. Again, I think we're much more likely to say how much we think an episode is good. And I think, like, maybe if we went back and revisited it now, I think we'd be like, well, it's fine. It's not great, but at this time, we're like, no, wait, actually, you know what? This is a lot of fun. This is a good episode. Chill out. We should enjoy Star Trek, and this is an example of Star Trek we can enjoy. And last episode, he may have been embarrassed by the voice he tried, and I am not. Yes, I will do Nagus laughing, and apparently throughout the podcast, I do some bad voices, do some better ones sometimes, but the yeah, that's easy to do, and it's very annoying, and I have no regrets and no shame. Yeah, Life Day is the Star Wars holiday special holiday, right? Not Happiness Day, but, I think I said it, whatever it is. And putting a foot down early on here, James starts his ISSB, Ivor Stephen Bear, may be a hack. You know what? Say what you will, call James a jerk for making that statement, but you know what? He planted his flag early on in the ROA, and he never gave up on it. And you got to respect that. So starting the campaign earlier. We didn't like the Godfather part of this as much. I guess the one scene. The Nagus has a son, which is interesting. The same way, I guess he might live in an alternate reality where Sisko's dad is still dead, because at this point in the show, I think later on in an episode, they refer to his dad, and it's said in the tense like his dad is passed and not with us anymore. But that is not the case, and we hear all about, and we meet Joe Sisko later on, so whatever. That has nothing to do with this episode, other than the Nagus has a son we never see again, and Sisko has a dead dad who actually we do see because he's not dead. Another thing we never see again is the puppet that the Nagus has, and I wish there was more puppetry in Star Trek across the board. I wish that puppet came back. I wish it was a little Salacious Crumb to the Nagus' old crime boss, but he's / religious figure or whatever. Another thing, just going back to the innocent times of 2015, I guess we were probably in 2016 by now. recording the podcast. But Juggalo culture now, I think James and looks at the Juggalos as comrades in a street fight kind of. You know what? The Juggalos have come back around to where, sure, they're dumb magnets. We know how magnets work, but I think, I think at this point, I think we're more sympathetic towards Juggalo culture in a way that we were not in this episode of DS9. And, part of it, I think, is, yes, Juggalos are dumb and maybe they're not. Some of you are very smart Juggalos out there, and, more respect this time than in the past, just like, because I think especially we've gotten a lot more focused on issues of class in society, and I think that's part of why we're not as mean to the Juggalos anymore. Anyways, I think if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. If you still think Juggalos are laughable and what the fuck are you talking about liking Juggalos now, Wade, we're betrayed. Well, infinite diversity and infinite combination. Sometimes you just need a murder clown out there saying, let's go sneak in to do some murder hoboing or something to I'm not going to talk about guillotines or anything. Sorry. Some people are rolling their eyes. Some people are going, fuck yeah, talk about guillotines. Anyways, let's talk about Andrea Martin, because it's a thing in this. We get in on a little detour about how I think my nose started bleeding when I started talking about Andrea Martin in an anime sense. Look, Andrea Martin is a national treasure, and I still believe that. And she's great. I mean, what can you say? I think at the time of this podcast, I was still listening to a lot of Julie Klausner's "How Was Your Week?" And I think at this about time, like, she had started making that Hulu show that got canceled after 2 or 3 seasons, Difficult People. And I just listened to Andrea Martin was on that show, and I had listened to that podcast where Julie was talking up Andrea Martin, and I realized, you know what? Andrea Martin is a national treasure. She did a lot of trapeze work for the Broadway revival of Pippin, and by all accounts, she's still got a smoking hot bod for her age, and that's why my nose is bleeding. And get over it, old people are great. Yeah, so yeah, my old pods, I was listening to things like that, and now I don't know what pods I listen to. Star Trek pods, right? Nope, just this one and some other ones. And it's funny how our podcast intake can change over 4 years. Maybe you can agree. Maybe you can see that. Maybe you've grown with us as we've done this pod and changed in our views. And as Hell World has caught flame and burst around us, maybe we are a little bit different than we used to be. I mean, we got to be different than we did. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. So this is a good podcast. I like this one. This one was a lot of fun. There's a lot of even when we disagree in this, we're like, okay, well, okay, I do agree with you. Even both of us, we're not that combative in this. It's kind of fun that way. It's kind of fun to be combative sometimes. But anyways, the Nagus, man, it was a good podcast, wasn't it? Yeah. So for your homework, I guess go watch My Dinner with Andre. And if you want to give us a call and tell us what you think about, tell me, I want to know what kind of old podcasts maybe you were listening to, how your podcast habits have changed. Just for me, maybe we'll do something with it. Give us a call if you want to talk about this episode or about Star Trek or about Rene Aubergenois. Oh yeah, bummer. I'm sorry. He passed away just recently, and that's a tough one because he's like the best. And we never, we may be later, we have criticisms of Odo as a character, but never of Rene Aubergenois. He's just great. So rest in peace. So if you want to tell, I'm doing a lot of rambling here. It's just good to not be coughing and sick and talking in a very scratchy voice. But 917-408-3898. Let us know about whatever you want to talk about. Check out the podcast. We're in it on the Hashish and Discovery. Discovery, that's not happening yet. The Hashish and Superiority Book Club. Go check out that podcast feed. Go to kickersofelves.com if you don't follow or if you're not subscribed to that, and you can do all the stuff and do all the things that every podcast asks you to do. If you want to hear that good old combative Kickers of Elves magic, well, listen to the Hashies and Superiority Book Club Season 2, Neil Stephenson's Fall, because get your knives out there and possibly your guillotines, because it's a little bit dicier. So yeah, but do all the stuff. I love you. I love some of these performers. I love Armin Shimmerman. I love It's Late, and I've got so much love. No, all right, just end the podcast, Wade. Push the button. Yep, that's it. And
You can turn this off now.
stick around. We're still doing stuff. All right, bye.
That is possibly why people are fearful for the future of our society. We believe in you. We know you are better than this.